Hi my loves, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jess from BehatiLife. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today we're going to be talking about 7 traits that are most commonly found across the board with intuitives, sensitives, psychics, and empaths. Now, although these traits are found in most of this group, I personally have found and feel that these traits that I'm going to mention are not talked about for whatever reason. Maybe society, or maybe the internet, or whoever's doing research, maybe there's not enough research. But from my own experience as a psychic, as an intuitive, as an empath, this is what I have discovered amongst the people that I have met that share similar traits and similar tendencies as me, and I'm noticing that there are common themes amongst us all. So I'm doing this for my own research, and it comes from my personal background. It comes from my personal experience. So what better way to share my experience and what I have found out than with my tribe, and you can tell me what you have found out and what you have discovered and what you have experienced. Now, if you do a quick search on Google or on the internet anywhere, you'll see that there are common themes that are being repeated over and over of traits of highly sensitive or psychic or intuitive people. So you can find that, and I agree with some of them and I disagree with some of them, but for the most part this list comes directly from my heart. It's not from external research, it's always from internal research. You know, I bring to you guys authentic information that I have checked and confirmed for myself, and it rings true for me, and that's why I bring it to you on the YouTube channel, because I want this platform to be not recycled information ever, but authentic experiences and authentic sharing. That being said, I did make a list of the traits as they came through to me this morning. I did not wake up with the intention of filming this video, but it made sense and it all just started coming through. So when that happens, I just roll with it. I actually do have a flight in a few hours and I still have to pack. So I'm probably not going to spend so much time diving into this because I have those things to do as well. But I am going to share my personal experience and a little story with each of these with each of these 7 traits, and I'm also going to explain to you why. So that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the first one. The first one that I wrote down, and this is going to sound so wild, but it's a person who keeps on waking up super groggy. And I know that sounds so crazy and so wild, but I feel like for a lot of you, it's, the light bulbs are going to start clicking on. And what happens is well, let me describe what this is. If you're in regular sleep, you'll see that there are people who can kind of bounce out of their sleep and move from a sleep state into awakened state, where they're just aware and they're in this physical realm outside of as soon as they exit out of sleep. But what I've noticed is that for highly psychic and highly sensitive and empathetic people, they have a hard time sometimes, especially in the beginning stages of their life, kind of transitioning out of sleep and into being awake. And this is because, and if it's not right away, or if it's not throughout their entire life, it'll come in cycles, and they'll start trying to change their lifestyle, meaning like, okay, I'm gonna go to bed earlier, or I'm gonna go to bed later, or whatever the case is. Maybe I'll change my diet, or they'll start making excuses for it, like, oh, there's all this extra stuff going on in my world, and that's what's making me need more sleep, and that's what's making it harder for me to wake up and to become cognizant, to become mentally clear. So, and then they'll make all these changes and think that there's something wrong with them, when in reality, their sleep-in state for many people is when they're most vulnerable. It's when their abilities and their mental mind, I don't know how the best way to describe it, but the way that they mentally are active, it starts to slow down, or at least go to a different level, a different vibration, which opens them up to receive intuitive messages, to get to connect with the other realms, to get an understanding of the subconscious, because they're in that state, in that sleep state, they're so open, they're so vulnerable. So when they move out of that and they're diving so deep within their sleep, and they just dive into that mode, when they are awake, especially if they're rudely awakened, or a lot of times you'll see that it's not even that someone shook you awake, but you will wake up to an alarm clock or wake up to go to work and you're really so groggy and out of it, and you could walk into walls or stumble over things. And it takes you longer to kind of get out of this, and it doesn't make a difference if you change your time that you wake up or the time that you go to sleep. It just happens. The other thing is that you'll dive into naps. So let's say you're taking a 20-minute nap or a 30-minute nap, you'll dive really deep into the subconscious and into the intuitive realm, into the other realms, and then when it's time for you to wake up, you're so groggy, you're so out of it, because a part of you is still lingering and a part of you is still having a hard time coming back into this physical body. And I've noticed that a lot. I've noticed that a lot in myself. I actually used to walk into walls, I would fall down things, or I would be so concerned and anxious. I would actually feel anxiety because I didn't understand, and I felt that there was something wrong with me. And it does kind of, you know, freak you out a little bit in the moment, because you could see people being like tired or groggy, but just this is on another level of, I'm having a hard time pulling up out of my sleep. So that's one trait that I see. Another thing that I see is, for these type of people, is that during this time, they have heightened, like really vivid dreams, messages come through, and these things correlate. They go together in a lot of ways. This is because this is the energy in the realm that you just were in. Another thing that I see is hearing voices, or right before you wake up, hearing a voice or something screaming. For a long time, this sounds so bizarre, but for a while, I would wake up out of my sleep and to almost someone like yelling or something, and it wasn't in my external environment. It was just me going through the process and working through my spiritual, like understanding my gifts and those types of things, and that would just be the voice that would come through at the time. And granted, it freaked me out. I remember I talked to my mom about it and my mentor, and they were like, okay, well, write them down, document it, Jess. They always allowed me to, instead of freaking me out and making me feel like there was something wrong with me, they said, well, let's discover it, let's explore it. And the more that I was given that space to discover and explore, the more that things calmed down, the more that things fell together and started making sense, and the more that I was able to develop my own personal gifts. So that's one of the reasons why I want to share this with you guys. The second trait makes me laugh, because the second thing that I see a lot is a person who was constantly, most often than not, getting in trouble in school, or just like off to the beat of their own drummer when it comes to school, education, and leadership and authority across the board. Why is this connected to intuitives and empaths and sensitives, when we're so seen as these sensitive people that wouldn't really want to ruffle feathers? It's not that we're intentionally trying to ruffle feathers, it's that we are more in tune with what is of a higher vibration. So if we're following these rules and these rules don't make sense, or if they don't serve the higher and the greatest good, it doesn't vibe with us, it doesn't make sense. So we want to push back, and it's not that we want to ruffle feathers or push, like, rebel on purpose, because that's actually the polar opposite. We would like to have successful and efficient and higher vibration leadership, I'm sure, but it's just the principles, the rules, the regulations do not serve, or they don't make sense, and we can feel that, we can sense that, or they dim and diminish our own spirit, not only ours but that of our classmates and the people around us. So what ends up happening is that we're not interested. We don't want to be a part of it. We question it. We push back, or for some people we push back, and for others, they can get just lost in the sauce. They can get distracted. They have a hard time doing their schoolwork. They have a hard time focusing half the time because they're not even in this world right now. They're on another realm. They're, creative, imaginative, thinking about nature, wanting to get out of this box, getting out of regulation and rules and all this, feels confining and doesn't feel positive and diminishes the spirit. So why would we want to sit there and listen to these rules and accept these rules when we know on another level from some ancient wisdom that has come before us, that is speaking to us now, that is saying this is not right? And most intuitives, most empaths, most sensitives, most psychics are here especially crystal and indigo children, which comes with the territory. It's a large group of us. We're here to not follow the rules. We're actually here to kind of be in tune to what is for the highest and greatest good of all mankind. And any type of organization and establishment, so you'll see that in universities, schools, government, business, those things are a recipe for total restructure. So, and policy and government, I already said that, but we gravitate, the indigo and the crystal children, the empaths and the sensitives, we will gravitate towards where we're designed to go, where we're delegated to go by the universe, by higher power. And then through our own research, through our own interest, through our own passion and desire, we then work to change it for the better, for not only this generation, but for the generations to come. And then more importantly, the globe, the world, and move people, human beings, into a higher state of consciousness. Now, to ask a psychic or intuitive or empathic person to sit within a classroom and follow the rules, it's just not going to happen. So 9 times out of 10, they end up being considered a rebel. They end up being called ADHD or ADD, or getting diagnosed something, oppositional defiance disorder, whatever it is that they want to call you. And really, that's not the case. Again, listen to your children. If you have kids, or if you're a parent, or if you have parents, listen to listen to that voice. Listen to the voice within you. Like, give that voice some space to speak. And what is it trying to say? Most children, most people are not trying to rebel on purpose. It's because they see that there is something not right. Now, don't get me wrong. There are kids who are, shaking the boat for no reason but to shake the boat, and maybe because they have their own healing to do. So, and that's how they call out for attention. But either way, that voice still needs to be heard, and there's something that needs to be addressed and taken care of. So we just need to pinpoint and find where that source is coming from in order to correct and make the situation right. The next symbol, or the next sign that I see is sensitives, empaths, psychics, intuitives have a strong aversion to certain lifestyles, specifically food. So I definitely related to this. In fact, I dealt with an eating disorder earlier on, but this had nothing, well, it had a part to do with my gifts, but more than that, it had a lot to do with my issues of control and that type of stuff. Long story, if you would like me to talk about my eating disorder that I had, that I still keep an eye out for to this day as an adult, even though I eat very healthy, I'd be more than happy to share that story. But that's probably something that's going to come later on the YouTube channel, and not so right now in this moment, simply because it's so personal and private, and I'm comfortable with sharing it, but it has to be at the right time. So if you would like me to talk about that, I'm more than happy to. But what I have noticed is that these type of people, these sensitives, these empaths, and these psychics, they have a tendency to strong aversions to certain lifestyles, and that in a lot of ways that means food. So they will be the first ones to recognize that meat doesn't feel right. At least not to them. They ask questions about, where's this meat coming from, or they just start to have like allergies or reactions to certain food. And then when you start doing more research on that food, you'll start seeing that there's a certain component to it. So maybe artificial sugars. If you know me, you know I have I'm a huge advocate for people steering away from artificial sugars. A lot of times people decide, oh, I'm going to cut sugar out because it's so bad for you. Raw sugar is 6,000 times better for you than artificial sugar. I mean, I'm no doctor, but on an energetic level, I just feel like I'm kind of here to talk about it and to make it known. Artificial sugar is one of the worst things you can put in your body. Yes, that means stop drinking Diet Coke. It's just so bad for you. I can't even talk about it. It's so bad for your physical body, and definitely bad for your spiritual self. And I can guarantee you, mark my words, I've been saying this for years, that a few years to come, they're going to start seeing a higher connection to cancer, and it just doesn't break down in the body. It just sits there, and it's like the energy that it comes through is like syrup. It's really, really bad. And I could talk about the artificial sugar thing if you want, and the visions that I get with that, but it does not bode well for human beings. And, say whatever it is that you want to say about that, but I'm not going to change my mind. I'm really not. I almost wanted to break up with someone because they fought with me about artificial sugar. I'm that serious about it. It's not a game. But anyways, that actually is a deal breaker for me. If there's a person in my life that doesn't want to hear what I have to say about artificial sugars and the visions that I get with them, I just can't. I can't be around. I can't. Just no. But do you see what I'm saying? Like the strong aversion to certain stuff. I mean, so everyone's different, but you'll see it a lot of times where there are people who are psychic and intuitive and empathic or empaths, and they will steer away from, most oftentimes they move away from meat, and that's because they feel the vibration of that meat. They're very keen to it, they're in tune to it, and they pick up that not only is that, you know, that lower their own personal vibration to make their bodies feel sick, but they're picking up on the emotion of the animal. There was a time, call me crazy, but there was a time where I was steering away from meat, and I was, you know, cut out any type of heavy meat. So red meat, of course, was cut out. And then I moved out chicken. And then I was only exclusively eating fish. And it's crazy because I started cutting the fish in order to prepare it to eat. And I got overwhelmed with a sense of sadness and death and like just hard, heavy feelings. And I was like bawling my eyes out, and it didn't make sense to me. And at that point I was like, what is it, angels? What is it? Is someone hurt? Does someone need me? Does someone need healing? What is it? And I looked down at the fish, and I realized it was the fish. It was the emotion of the fish. I know that sounds crazy, but I know that my psychic, my intuitives, and my sensitive people will know what I'm talking about. If they haven't experienced already, I can almost guarantee you that you will at some point. Interestingly enough, I'm back eating meat again at this point in my life in 2018, but who knows what the future holds, and my body's in a different state than it was now than it was then, and I'm in a different place in my life and my psychic development and my sensitivities than I was then at that moment. So, and it's hard to explain. If you would like me to make a video about that, I don't know what I would title it, but I'm more than happy to talk about it with you. But you'll definitely see that that trait, that there is a strong aversion to food or a lifestyle in particular. Honestly, I would give examples about this, but everyone is so different, especially my intuitives. So I'll leave it to you guys. You just kind of find what doesn't work with you and doesn't vibe with you, and it just resonates. So you just stay away from it, you steer clear. The next sign that I have is that you tend to be an introvert, or an introvert that learns how to be extroverted. An introvert who knows how to be extroverted in an extroverted world. So, and that can really create a delay in getting to know yourself, because to your core, you're actually very sensitive, you're very quiet, you're very withdrawn and very reflective, and you need time for yourself. But because you live in this extroverted world where people are constantly in your face and trying to make you excited and trying to sell and get your attention and, you know, express, that you learn how to become more extroverted. And it's, you know, it's this kind of like balance. And I think that the reason why this is that for many highly sensitive and intuitive and empathetic people, as to their core, they need to disconnect. They need to be away from others. They need to disconnect from mankind. They need to withdraw into nature. And I've seen my extroverted people be, and you guys really have to keep an open mind with this and to really think about this, because I'm going to challenge many of your beliefs about yourself. So you may have actually believed for a long time that you're extroverted, but in reality, it's like you don't even realize how much you kind of do get nervous before you walk into a group, or how uncomfortable you are when you walk into a group, but you can still turn it on. And what you're doing is you're putting on this mask because society teaches you that this is what you need to do in order to be accepted, to be loved, to meet new people, to get new opportunities, or whatever the case is. So we learn to the point where we diminish and we ignore that introverted side that says that this is a very important need. So then we just walk around calling ourselves extroverts, when in reality, you're an introvert who just learned how to be extroverted. So the reason why I'm thinking that introverts, you know, you'll see a lot more introverted people that are highly sensitive and highly intuitive is because they really do need to disconnect from the outside world in order to ground themselves, to center themselves, and to reconnect within, because this energy is so draining. This world, even though it's the world that we live in, it's abnormal. Okay, we think that it's normal because this is what we're used to, but just because we're used to it doesn't mean that it's healthy. It doesn't mean that it's normal by any means. It's just what we're accustomed to. So maybe it is normal, but it's not conducive to anybody's growth or really thriving unless we raise our vibration, which we're all working with as human beings. But that's why the introvert is so important, because it shows you how those people show you how to connect with your own voice, your own vibe, in order to create a positive change, in order to create a positive outcome. So you'll definitely see that is these introverted people, higher rates of introverted people. And then there's many of you who are going to watch this video and realize, oh my God, I was introverted all this time, not realizing it, but I just learned how to be extroverted. Some people even call it ambivert. Like, that was a word that was created, which is a person who is both of these things. And I really want to question that, because I feel like the introvert in this society, in this world, was never allowed to really truly be introverted. And then we say, oh, this person is multi-gifted. No, this person knows how to wear a mask, and that's okay. I was like that. I grew up in an extroverted household, so when I branched out on my own, which I did at a relatively earlier age, I realized I'm a very introverted person, but I just know how to turn it on for the masses. Do you know what I mean? So that was one sign. My sign number 5 is, at some point, the introvert, the sensitive, and the empath probably rejected God, a higher power, or is probably still in a state of questioning the higher power. Or on the very opposite side, they have a deep, deep connection with God, the angels, and guides that a lot of people are just like, is this even real? Because it's on another level of belief and faith. Now, I believe that the intuitive, the sensitive, the empath at one point questions everything, because again, it questions norms. It questions what everyone believes, because that person needs to experience it for themselves. In order for them to experience it for themselves, they then are transformed by it and then have this unwavering faith, or this unwavering belief in what it is that they have experienced. So there's either that, or they're born into this world, or they get into a space where they have gone from being completely unbelievers of any type of higher power into having this like insane belief because they heard the voice of God, they have an experience with this higher power, this higher energy, or they have an understanding of what that looks like. Now, you've never heard me talk about my beliefs on the YouTube channel. I'm more than happy to share those beliefs with you, but I've never talked about them. So I like to use general terms for talking about my spirituality so that it resonates with most people. But I mean, the reason why I'm saying that is because I've gone through this myself, and I've never publicly on YouTube or even on my Instagram or anywhere, people swear that they understand my belief system when I'm just a reflection of their belief system. Sorry guys, for some reason my camera cut out. But what I was saying is, I've never publicly put myself out there and said what my own spiritual beliefs were to my core. I've just been merely a reflection of what other people believe, and I've been the voice of our community to some extent. So that was my number 5, is that person rejects God at some point, questioned beliefs, or the very opposite, had a very deep connection to God, the higher power, this higher source, whatever you want to call it, immediately. The 6th thing that I see is this person tends to favor children or older people, but usually preferring elderly, and children over adults. This is because the majority of the adults at the time are, I don't want to say brainwashed as you're growing up, but they kind of conform to certain rules. And older people and children have a sense of purity and innocence and honesty that you can't really find in the mid-range people. And intuitives and empaths, they can sense that something is wrong. They can sense the truth, and they vibe with children who speak the truth and say what they feel and say what they mean, because empaths and sensitives and intuitives know it already. Same thing with older people. Older people will be the first one to be like, I don't give a damn. And the empath and then the intuitive is like, thank you for that, because I'm tired of the bullshit. And I knew that. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for not trying to sugarcoat this. Thank you for not trying to sell me something. So the intuitive, the sensitive, the empath has a natural tendency to kind of gravitate towards those two groups of populations, unless they find an adult that, and I say this as if I'm not an adult, but I'm a different generation of an adult, and I'm a different type. Not to say that all adults are bad or whatever. I'm just saying usually across the board in general. So yeah, or if there are other adults that they gravitate towards, it's because that person is also highly intuitive, highly sensitive, or very honest, very blunt, and or has a really good spirit, a good energy. And that person, the sensitive, the intuitive, vibes with that really well. And lastly, this is so obvious, and I'm sure you guys have heard this before, but these people tend to be completely different from the rest of the kids, from the rest of the world. Usually they don't fit in. Usually they're a misfit in some way. They take sometimes a little longer to kind of discover themselves, because there isn't a category for us. We have to find our own way. So for that, that means that the sooner that you find yourself is usually the sooner that you branch away from your family, branch away from your community, in order to just be in your element and to discover yourself. That's why homelessness, for me, I say homelessness, but I was living in the woods for a good amount of time. Just discovering myself, working on my spirituality. A lot of people don't know that, but that's where I'm at. You wouldn't guess by looking at me now, but I spent a lot of time in my element, in my zone, in nature, completely disconnected. I really thought about, I really considered, you know, having like a, you know, living out in the woods, living in a tent for as long as I could. And if it wasn't for that process, I wouldn't be where I'm at today, and I wouldn't be literally where I'm at today. So how I looked then and who I was then is so different than who I am now, and it's on another level because of what I've gone through and what I chose, the lifestyle that I chose in that moment. So for most people, you have to really branch out on your own to get away from the voice and the fear and the opinions of others, even people who really love us, because they don't understand. They don't understand, and they want what's best for you, or they're just not negative people. They're not there to encourage you in your path, so you have to kind of go your own way. There are many kids who are not intuitive and not sensitive or empaths in any way, shape, or form, and they kind of gravitate toward more traditional paths and more traditional lifestyles, and that's okay. No one is better than anyone. We're all here to serve our purpose for the most part in the way that we are designed to do. So no one is, you know, the empath and the sensitive and psychic is not better than the person who has no gifts on that realm, but that person may have gifts elsewhere. So they just, normal kids, regular kids have, you know, have a easier time kind of finding their way or finding where they fit, until they get uncomfortable, or until their own gifts start revealing themselves, and then they get uncomfortable, and then they have to start asking questions, and then finding those intuitives and empaths and sensitives that have already been there, done that, and can share their light with those people. So we're all here to help each other. We're all here to help each other grow. We're all connected. No one is better than anyone, but I can say that intuitives, sensitives, and empaths usually do not fit in with the rest of the kids. Sometimes they're even off in their own thoughts, so it's hard for them to communicate. It's hard for them to connect. And that was another thing that I have to say, is that sometimes there is, this person either talks so much and they're just talking like things like making up stories, like blah, 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 blah. There's just like a kid that just, where is your head at, little guy? Like, where are you at right now? Or they have delay in speech. They don't talk at all. They just absorb, they look, they are taking in. So you'll see that a lot. And a lot of kids, they're like, what is wrong with little Jamie? You know, she's so weird. Kids will sense it. Kids will pick up on it. But it's because little Jamie, boy or girl, is you know, absorbing the world, seeing the world different, experiencing the world different, picking up on messages, picking up on information that the rest of you guys are missing out on. But it's okay, because we all catch up eventually, and we all exchange our gifts ultimately. All right, so that's what I have. Those are the 7 most common things that I have seen and that I've experienced within my own research, but people are not talking about it. So this video is going to be totally different than what else is out there on the internet, but that's good because it's very authentic. It comes from a very real space, a very real place. So I'm interested in hearing how many of these you resonate with, how many of these you've experienced, which ones are you experiencing, which ones haven't you experienced, and what other traits do you kind of see within yourself for my intuitive, my sensitive, and my empath community. All right, you guys, so until then, make sure that you're subscribed to the YouTube channel because there's plenty more videos where this came from, including my own intuitive messages and weekly astro and tarot and intuitive forecasts. I love you. Bye.